Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. This is your host, Erin Bradley, and I am so glad that you're here. I have a great show in store for you today with my new friend, Shae Spitz. And Shae and we don't even know how we found each other, but I love this woman already. She's a firecracker, and she has been consistently closing roughly an average of 70 transactions a year for the last few years with a very small but mighty team. And we were talking earlier about the whole balancing act of motherhood and business. She has 3 young kids, and really just ultimately how are you doing this kind of volume, because there's so many people listening to the podcast that are either selling real estate, doing mortgages in the real estate space, thinking to themselves, wait, did she just say 70 transactions a year right now in 2025? And it's like, yeah, she actually had her best year ever in 2024. So I think we've got a lot of gold in store for you guys today. So thanks for listening. We're going to have some fun. And Shae, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today.
Absolutely, you are welcome, and what a great intro. You nailed it.
Yeah, well, bring us back. So you got into real estate in 2018. Talk us through what brought you to make that leap of faith, and then like how did you create such monumental exponential growth in such a short amount of time?
So, my husband and I started renovating properties in 2016. We never came from a real estate background, so it was just like one day I was actually working as a case manager for mentally ill adults, making $25,000 a year back then. We had 2 kids at the time, actually 1 kid at the time, and our second on the way. My husband was an electrician. We were working in 2 different directions, and I remember he called me one morning. He's like, "I really want to start renovating properties." I'm like, we watched HGTV and all that fun stuff, but we don't come from a real estate background. My grandparents have owned the same house their entire lives. Same with my aunts, uncles. People didn't move. But anyway, so I was like, okay, sounds good. And I just started talking to lenders and other real estate agents, kind of getting the vibe on it. And we ended up going to a free course session in Omaha. It was like a 2, 3 hour course. And then that led to like a 3 day course that you paid like $300 to go to this 3 day thing. Now, keep in mind, we had no money that we couldn't even afford a hotel room. So we were actually staying at that 3 day course. Were actually staying with my husband's stepmom's parents in Omaha. And I was like 8.5 months pregnant. Long story short, it was a $25,000 commitment to get to enroll in this program. And they would teach you how to cultivate leads, how to prospect, what to do when you prospect, how to set up your LLC. I mean, just all the things and all the tools and tips and tricks and all the stuff. I didn't make it. I think I ended up going home or going back to the house like a little early that Saturday. And I was like, I told my husband, like, we're not doing it. I make $25,000 a year, and that's not even profit. I'm not putting 25,000. We have no money. I don't know where you're going to get this 25,000. Well, he convinced me otherwise, and we took out like 4 or 5 credit cards, put it all that $25,000 all on credit cards. It was 0% interest for like 12 months, somewhere 18 months. It was the hardest year of our life, to be honest with you, but the best decision we ever made. And we ended up getting $22,000 paid off. We found a property, purchased it, renovated it, and had a profit of about $22,000. Put all of that towards the credit cards. And then we were able to get the rest paid off. And we've done, a handful or several flips since. Well, fast forward, we were doing flips and I was managing them, selling them, putting them under contract, and we're still working full time. And then I decided, well, I'm just gonna get my real estate license, got my license, passed on the first time, gave my 3 weeks, and I went 100%. I was like, if I'm doing this, I'm going all in. And I remember getting to my cubicle. It was July 9th, 2018. And I thought to myself, now what? Like, I thought there was going to be a list of buyers and a list of sellers I could just contact and be like, I'll list your house. And that wasn't what it was. It was a lot harder than that. I had to do my own prospecting and my own networking and thinking outside the box. So I just remember like getting onto YouTube because this was before internet leads, really. And they probably had it, but my company wasn't offering them. So I had no idea what to do. So it was an interesting year, but I ended up closing on I got my license in July. I was able to close on 14 transactions by the end of the year.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I just was door knocking. I got onto Zillow calling for sale by owners. That's really where most of them came from. And then I also had like relationships with contractors because we were obviously renovating properties that 2 of them ended up buying and selling. So it worked. I mean, worked out very well. And so my first year, I think I did 50. My first full year was 52 transactions. And then I think 1 year was maybe 48. And then ever since then, it was like 68 to 73, I think.
There's a lot to unpack here. I want to start by acknowledging how you bet on yourselves and you did the thing. You opened the credit cards, you went all in because I heard something not too long ago from a mentor who said, if you don't believe in yourself and your business enough to invest in it,
Yeah.
why would you expect anyone else to?
Yeah.
And it just struck me because so many people are terrified of investing in themselves. But in other industries, you go to school, you get a degree, you get a master's in order to earn top dollar. And here in the real estate world, those who are earning top dollar at some point had to bet on themselves. They had
Yeah.
to invest in themselves and attend the course. And doing so clearly created an exponential growth in your outcome as a flipper initially, but I mean, I'm sure now as a real estate agent. So how has your business model evolved over the years? You talked about door knocking at the very beginning, and I'm kind of curious now that you've got this momentum and this flywheel moving, what does business development look like for you in today's market?
Honestly, I think from the beginning, I've always done a really good job at staying in touch with my past clients. And I just have, I really niche down on that, and really focus on my past clients. So I also believe in like systems as well. So like my marketing virtual assistant, that's part of her job, is to keep in touch with past clients. And the way she does that, and it's very simple, is from the beginning, I utilize, it's called TPMCO.com. And they have a follow-up plan. It used to be $25. It was a one-time payment. Now I think it's maybe 35 or 50. I don't remember. But basically what it is once you close on a property, you input your client into this follow-up plan. They receive 2 postcards and 2 newsletters every single year for 5 years. And that is $25. I think it's 50 now, but that's all you do. You put it in one time and they get these newsletters and postcards, two and two, for 5 years, every single year. So I started doing that, and that was what I did from the beginning. I also did client appreciation events, and I never did anything like too crazy because I feel like that takes up so much time. That takes away from like other prospecting. You see some people do these huge client appreciation events. I don't have the mental capacity to do that. I mean, so what I've done in the past is our Habitat for Humanity. So I also like to support nonprofit organizations. So every Christmas, they do these cookie kits and they're like $15. So then I will go and buy cookie kits for my clients that year and maybe the year prior, or some of my top clients. So, I might be getting anywhere from 30 to 50 a year. And then I'm delivering them to my past clients. So then I'm supporting nonprofit, but then I'm also giving a gift to clients and consumers as well, because people are busy. So a lot of times people don't come out to those client appreciation events. I've hosted some have been a good turnout, some was kind of a flop, but that's kind of really where it's at. And then I also do what's called AMCards. It's amcards.com. And I set them up on a drip campaign. So as soon as they close, this is primarily for buyers. As soon as they close, they get a postcard within 1 week, congratulating them. And then I think it's like 1 month, 6 month, and then at a year, they get a card that says happy 1 year anniversary, and then also a box of brownies. And that both of those are a set it and forget it. Like you go in there after you close, my VA does it, inputs their contact information, their name, address, and then I don't have to remember it at all. So then a year comes and then I'll have my clients like, I can't believe you remembered. It's been a year. Thank you so much for the brownies. I'm like, I didn't remember that. I put it or my VA put it into the system and then it just automatically sends out. So I would say like really making it a focus on past clients and making them, and during the process, making them feel like they're not just another transaction. And my biggest differentiator. But I also have been a pretty good like rapport builder. I was a case manager. I went to school for human service counseling. So I kind of learned how to communicate with people for the most part. And I was a bartender, and that'll teach you patience. So that'll teach you a
Yeah,
lot of.
I was a bartender for 10 years, and I always say that service industry is the greatest predecessor to the real estate space. Honestly, I was also a teacher, and I feel like being a teacher and a bartender really sets you up for the people management and, obviously the education. But I mean, it's interesting to me because, you know, it's 2025, so you've been in the business for 7 years. You're doing an extraordinary amount of volume, and what I love and what we talk about a lot here is like your ability to recite your recipe for success. Like you were like, I like systems. I'm like, so do I, because I don't want to rely on my mood and my energy to create my outcome. So like you've got this plug and play. When did you have the confidence to start, bringing on a virtual assistant, having a transaction manager, like what did that look like for you to transition from solopreneur, I imagine running like a chicken with your head cut off, to
Mhm.
having people to help you implement these systems? Because some people are so overwhelmed they can't even think about how to implement the system and have to run the system too.
Right. And it is tough. And it took me a long time. I'll be honest. They always say, slow to hire, quick to fire. And honestly, I was with a different brokerage about 2.5 years ago before I switched over to eXp Realty. And I kind of had it made over there. It sounds silly. Then why did you leave if you had it made? But there was just a lot of things in the personal side that my broker was doing that I wasn't, the way I saw it is if I had a leader and a broker and a mentor, I wanted to idolize them in all aspects, not just in business. So she was very good in business, but the personal life, family life, faith, or spiritual life, awful. Like I could just see it like going downhill. And I was like, I couldn't agree with a lot of those things. So it didn't sit right with me working for a company. And I had been with that company since the very beginning. So it was something completely different, completely new. And I had been thinking about moving for about 9 months before I actually did it. It wasn't because when I was over there, I didn't have somebody doing my paperwork, but we had somebody inputting into the MLS. We had somebody scheduled to do photos. Like we had all of that. So when I was going to be transitioning over to eXp Realty, there wasn't a group of people here at eXp Realty that could help me with the systems, who could help me with the programs, who had a photographer, who had all these things. And my husband is a very analytical person. He is a very like non-risk taker. So he was telling me all the things that could go wrong, and I'm gonna have to find a photographer, and I'm gonna have to do this. And I finally got to the point and I said, Adam, I don't need you to tell me what's gonna go wrong. I need you to tell me, like, hey, Shay, no matter what happens, I got you. Like, and he's like, okay, all right. Because I didn't want to hear all this stuff. I didn't want to hear it. I saw the bigger vision, I saw the opportunities, and I didn't want to know all the things that could go wrong. Because I mean, you're gonna always have things that could go wrong. So the first like 3 months were, I don't want to say hell, but it was hard because I had to learn new systems, new paperwork. That's when I had my husband kind of handling a lot of it. And I remember just breaking down and crying. And I don't know, it was awful. I cried so much. I ended up having a mental breakdown, which led to my podcast and all of those things. But I had a mental breakdown because business had slowed down, expenses increased. I had just hired a coach that was $2,000 a month. I just got my own office. So that was an additional like $700 a month. I had to get it, all these things, it was getting expensive. It was gut wrenching. And then after I left, there was about 7 agents who ended up leaving after I left that other company. And we only had like 9 or 10 to begin with. After a while, after about a year of my husband handling my paperwork, I realized that it wasn't as productive as it could be for me to hire somebody else. So I actually hired one of the other agents who followed me over to EXP because she's more of an analytical person, detail oriented, and she's not a huge like I want to be in front. So I ended up hiring her to handle my paperwork. And you kind of start realizing when you start leveraging and delegating, you realize how much more you can leverage and delegate, and you realize what you're bad at. So you don't want to work on your weaknesses. You just need to offload it to somebody else who's better at it. So the marketing, then after I hired my TC, my coach was like, you need to hire somebody for your marketing who can post your open houses, new listings, price changes, all of those things. So then I was paying somebody. I ended up hiring somebody who used to be a real estate agent. She loves photography, hired her as my photographer. And then she also became my marketing director. And she did that for about a year and a half until she onboarded and trained a virtual assistant. And now I went that direction. But I think once you start, you're thinking, why did I not do this sooner?
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be, maybe they can't do it better than you, but 80% of somebody else doing what you could do at 100% is still so much better because you can focus your time on the income producing activities. So if I can pay even somebody else to do my marketing at $20 an hour, Absolutely, because my time is worth so much more than that. Now I'm paying a VA like 450 or $5 an hour, so vastly different. But I mean, you just got to start.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting because sometimes when I speak with folks on the podcast or in coaching sessions or whatever, we talk a lot about what's not getting done because it's all on you. And so those who are capable of reciting your recipe for success and your systems and all these things like you're able to do, a lot of it is only possible because you've got somebody to set up the system, run the system. And it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And so it's scary because we're thinking like, what's it going to cost me? I'm like, it's costing you not to, because to your point, if someone else can do it 80% as good as I think I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it at all, that's 80% better than zero.
And I'll give another prime example is that I have a co-agent who I had been telling her for years, you need to get an LLC set up and start filing as an S corp and start paying yourself so then you can save on self-employment tax. So she's been in the business, she's been doing very well. Last year, I finally asked her, I was like, did you get that LLC? She goes, no, I've been trying to. I've been doing it myself to save on paying an attorney to set up the LLC. And I said, okay, we're going to reverse engineer this. Like I said, how much did you pay last year? And she told me, and then I broke it down for her that if she would have paid an attorney $1,200 at the very beginning of the year, had it started filing as an S corp and paying her a reasonable salary, she would have ended up saving, paying into taxes $13,000. Like we reverse engineer. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go hire an attorney right now. I'm like, yeah, you better do that because
Yeah.
your procrastination, what you think you can save on, is actually costing you so much more in the long run. And that was like a prime example. And she's like, okay, so she ended up like within a week. Well, I mean, obviously it takes a little bit more than that to do an LLC, but within a week she hired an attorney and he was getting it all set up and now she files as an S corp. So like you don't realize how much money you're actually losing. And that's like hiring a good CPA. You might have to pay more for a good CPA, but you have no idea how much money they can save you in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. So now that you're over at EXP, is part of your business model agent attraction as well? Do you have agents
No, it's
joining?
not. And I keep getting people to tell me or that are telling me, "Oh, you need to do that." I feel like my agent attraction would be more like, okay, you do business and then people will be attracted to you. I just would never want to encourage somebody to come over and then it be a complete flop for them. You know what I mean? Like I know it's their decision, but I don't want to convince somebody that, it's perfect, it's glorious, it's glamorous, it's so much better than what you have it now. Because you still have to work for it. And I didn't want to create a team because I feel that most people, no offense to anybody who's like this, but I feel like most people are lazy. So if I have a team and I'm taking 20, 30% from their commission, they're going to look at me and say, I'm not getting any transactions. What are you going to do for me? Okay, well, I can provide you the leads. You still have to work them. I just prefer to do it like, okay, well, if I have a lead, I'll just pass it off and do a referral versus me having a whole team underneath of me. So that's my outlook on it. A lot less stress than having a whole team because I don't want a team. I have family and I don't want to deal with that. So
Yeah.
I
Okay, so
know.
that brings me to my next question because, okay, you're doing a ton of transactions, you've got 3 young children, and then you decide I'm also going to start a podcast. So talk to us about the podcast. What's the name of it? What was the motivation behind it? What are you excited about talking about on your show so that people can come and check it out? And how did you come to like, let me just add one more thing because this will be fun.
Oh, I have an Airbnb and I have other rentals and I got all sorts of other one and we're doing a development right now. It's a 75-acre development. So I got all sorts of my attorney's like, Shay, seriously, like we gotta stop. But anyway, so how my podcast came about. So it's called Real Moms, REAL. Initially, I thought it was gonna be real estate for the RE, but I think I changed it to Resilient Entrepreneurs and Abundant Living Moms Podcast. So it's mompreneurs that I basically interview. I am going to start bringing in a couple men here and there because I will say that if it wasn't for men, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today on who has inspired me, motivated me, empowered me, given me opportunities. So obviously men are extremely important as well. So I'm going to start bringing in some men on what they do to help take business owners to another level. But ultimately what it comes down to is when I switched over from EXP, I had mentioned that I had gone through a mental breakdown. I mean, I lost 18 pounds in 2 weeks. I was sleeping maybe an hour and a half a night. It was the worst thing. My dad had cancer. He was actually diagnosed with cancer after that. It was a whole thing. I don't even remember what those years went, but I had a mental breakdown unlike anything I had ever experienced. And I remember getting up, and fitness was always a big thing for me. And I wasn't even working out. And I remember getting up one morning, standing on our front porch, and I'm like, I have to go for a walk. And it was the hardest thing I made myself do. I went on a walk, and it came to me that, hey, you need to create a community of women in our area who are entrepreneurs and moms who are also struggling, not struggling in that moment, but have struggled. And, you can kind of confide in one another, and then also help people put the right pieces in place. Because when you get into entrepreneurship, you're wearing all the hats. You're the CEO, CFO, photographer, marketer, CPA, all the things. So I started bringing in an attorney. I brought in like my CPA. I brought in like a health and fitness coach. Like I had other speakers coming in and talking to us in all these different realms. And then after a little while doing that, I had an interview. I don't remember with who, but then they said I should do a podcast. And I was like, all right, sounds good. So then I started doing a podcast. That's really what it
So
was.
I love it. So what are some of the things you guys are unpacking on the show?
So like yesterday, prime example, I mean, the word success, I mean, it's so vague, and it's so broad, and everybody's definition of success is so different. And I think a lot of people see people who are successful and think they have it made, like they got it good. They don't realize that like every new level is a new devil. Every layer of success, you're going to come across more problems, unfortunately. And a lot of times, entrepreneurship is not for the weak. You have to be mentally strong, and you have to go through hard times. And if you just keep going, but so that's kind of what we unpack, is talking about like the struggles that these women have gone through, not only in their business, but in their personal and their relationships, because it does take a toll on your relationship and in your marriage when you do go out as an entrepreneur, especially when you start becoming the breadwinner, when they are not used to you being the breadwinner, or they're used to you picking up the kids and dropping the kids off every day and having supper when you get home. And that's not the case anymore. So it's unpacking like the struggles. Like this most recent one is, she ended up getting divorced in 2019, and she was, married to a narcissist. And then in 2022, her 20-year-old daughter committed suicide. And like there was just all these like events that happened that has eventually transformed her into who she is today, and how she was able to set up the certain systems. Because she said after her daughter died, she was gone for a month, like a month and a half, but her business was able to sustain because she had the right tools, the right systems, and the right people in the right places. Now, obviously, she said her happiness today is never going to be what it was prior to her daughter passing away. But it's just conversations like that, like real and authentic conversations that somebody looking from the outside in might think they have it great. They must be doing well and they got it picture perfect. But it's not always like that. Most of the time, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and it's the stuff I see at the retreats that I host and on these podcasts where and I just remember coming up in the business, and that moment for me was in 2012 when I was pregnant with my second child, and I had my best year ever, and I was drowning, and I was becoming a shell of myself. I was tethered to my phone 24/7. I was basically like feeding my kid microwave mac and cheese in a styrofoam cup, like just not there, not present at all. And I remember asking advice of some women that were ahead of me in the game. Like if I closed out that year at almost 20 million in volume, they were at 30 million in volume, and their kids were a little bit older. And I remember asking advice, and they said, my husband gets the kids to bed, and then after that, I'm doing loan documents or I'm working on files until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I just remember coming home thinking like, maybe I'm not cut out for this, because I'm finally experiencing this quote unquote success. So we think, right? External success, money coming in the door. And I was grateful for it at first, enough to like convince myself it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It's like, no, it's not. We're not fine. We are not fine. And like, neither were they. And so I really appreciate you sharing your story, because I think it's important for people to hear that the number of transactions isn't really the definition of success. It's the willingness to do the work, to find what fulfillment means for you, and that changes. It's
Yeah.
also interesting how you said that the next level is the devil or has a devil or whatever, because I also feel really passionately that playing small is its own devil. So it's like
Mhm.
finding the not the balance, but finding the harmony in saying yes to expansion, and then being willing to know what to say no to, because we can't say yes to more and more and more and not subtract and subtract and subtract. And I think that, yeah, it's powerful for people to hear your story. And I think it's awesome that you have a podcast on that and that you're getting the opportunity to let other people come and share their stories, because that honesty and vulnerability is what gives all of us permission to know that we may feel lonely, but we're
Right.
not alone.
No, you're not. It's okay to not be okay. It really is. But I mean, even now, my family's going through some really hard times. We went through really hard times 2 years ago with my dad's cancer and a family member's severe, when I say severe, it's not severe gambling addiction. I mean, and it was crazy because it was all because of a medication they got put on. The gambling addiction was. Abilify, for anybody out there, one of the side effects is gambling addiction.
Wow.
Wildest thing in the entire world, to the point where they were having physical withdrawals, shaking, hyperventilating, sweating. And this was like a flip of a switch. And when I say severe, within about a couple months, it was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars gone. It was
Wow.
horrible. It was horrible. I would say
Wild.
that that was way harder than going through my dad's cancer and his lung removal and chemo. That the gambling was so much harder because we weren't only trying to battle this gambling addiction, but we were also trying to prevent suicide. And all these suicide ideations, because gambling addiction actually has the highest rate of suicide than any other addiction. And then we found out that when we were going to a gambling counselor, that he was like, "What did you say? What meds were you on?" And we told him, and he's like, "I'm gonna need to look into that." And then, yeah, come to find out that Abilify side effect is gambling addiction. And as soon as they got off of it, within 2 weeks, never had another desire the way they had it before.
That is
It
so
was
wild. And it's
horrible.
interesting too, because one of the things that, we've talked about a lot is like, it's not just about how we show up in our business. It's the reality that life is going to always be happening and that we're all going to be navigating things in our personal lives and loss and trauma and tragedy. And then how do we manage ourselves to be able to show up amidst the circumstances that are so devastating and energy draining and yet out of our control? Again, I appreciate the vulnerability and the honesty, because it's just somebody out there's listening that needed to hear that and be reminded that we're all going through it, and we're all going through different things at different times. And it's not just about business, right? It's about how we design our lives to allow us to have the ability to be present for those moments and our family members. And I think there's power in this industry and the ability to design it so that you can be present for them. And it can
Yes.
also just take us on a ride and make
Yeah.
it, like the business is sucking the life right out of us. So it's like we have to
Right.
make those decisions, and we have to continue to make those decisions as our life evolves. Our business needs to be evolving too. So yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time today and sharing all of this with us, with our listeners. And I am going to send love to you as well, and to your family and everything that you've been navigating, and in the hopes that things start to feel lighter for you as well.
You just got to power through it. One of the quotes that I heard is, if you're going through hell, don't stop. You know,
Yeah, don't stay
we
there.
all have that hell that we will go through, but if you just keep going, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We may not always understand why certain things happen, but eventually we will, whether it's in this lifetime or afterlife. So,
Yeah. Well, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
yes, thank you so much, Erin.
And how can folks find you or follow you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram or social or on Facebook. It's Shae SHAE Spitz SPITZ. So those are my handles. I'm on YouTube, and then you can always email me at shay.spitz@exprealty.com, or my website is homeswithshay.com. Would love to have you guys check out my podcast, Real Moms Podcast with Shae Spitz. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe. And we got a lot of great women who share their stories and are vulnerable as well.
Yes, I love it. And to the listeners, if you do check out her podcast, or if you found value in this and you feel like somebody needed to hear this today, be sure to share this episode with someone who needed it. And be sure to continue to tune in and do the same here. Like, subscribe, leave your reviews, because it helps us continue to attract amazing guests and help more people on your journey to building a life you don't need a vacation from. I love you. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.